the Real Hustle Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Chris Kivlin. Real hustle, real people, real results. You can help support our podcast by checking out our Real Hustle gear. We have t-shirts, hoodies, tank tops, hats, and more. The Real Hustle gear is great for the gym or even a night out on the town. Let everyone know that you are a real hustler willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. You can check us out right now at realhustle.com, and right now we're offering all of our listeners 10% off when you use the promo code podcast at checkout. Once again, that is podcast to receive 10% off your entire order. realhustle.com.
What's up, Adam? How are you today?
Hi, Chris.
How are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So kind of tell us a little bit about you, just like a quick, give us your 30-second, 45-second elevator speech about you.
Okay. Well, first, where's the mimosas?
I forgot them. Next time. We should have protein powder mimosas.
There you go.
All right.
But with alcohol.
Yeah, with alcohol.
As far as about me, I've been doing music business now since the mid-'90s. I got started working in various studios in Orlando, and then I moved here in Sarasota to work with Boyce Avenue, and that's the really quick version.
That's the really quick version?
Yeah.
So I always like when I have our guests on, I always like to talk about a little bit about when you were younger. Did you know you wanted to be in the music business as a young child or as an adult, or is it something you always knew, or did it come later?
Yeah, I kind of fell into it. When I was younger, I was playing guitar, but I didn't take it seriously enough to be good enough to be a great guitar player or anything. So as I got older, I did get proficient at the guitar, but it wasn't something I knew that I was gonna, do as a living. And when I was going to college, I think at the age of 18 or something, somebody told me about Full Sail in Orlando, and that you could go there to learn how to record music and stuff like that. And I had no idea how music was made or anything like that. So I went to Orlando to check out the school, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to do this. So I moved to Orlando, and I went to Full Sail to check that out. And it was really cool experience. Just because I was blown away with learning how everything worked with the whole aspect of recording and how that was done. So it was cool. So
tell us a little bit about Full Sail, because I know my son Bryce, he went there and checked it out, but and I've heard stories of how things work. Like, did you have to get up in the middle of the night and do stuff and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so it was interesting. It was kind of around the clock, and Bryce and I were talking about this just before we started. When I went, it was a lot smaller of a school, and they only had a couple of programs, which was recording and filming at the time. And now I think they have a bunch of different programs that you can get into, and it's a lot more expensive as well. But yeah, when I went, it was cool. You would have to do labs, so they had classwork, which was like 4-hour chunks, and then a lab, which was a 4-hour chunk. And sometimes you'd have to go in at midnight. You'd have to go into midnight, and then sometimes at 6 in the morning.
What was the point of the midnight?
They only had if they had certain amount of labs where you would learn the hands-on stuff, like the studios and stuff like that. So and they were limited to 6 students per lab.
Okay.
So in order to facilitate all the students being able to use the labs, they had to go around the clock to kind of use them.
Okay.
So yeah. But it wasn't a big deal, and honestly, it sort of preps you a little bit for the industry itself, because a lot of times you don't work 9 to 5. It's usually some really weird and late hours.
They do crazy hours.
Yeah. So
you went to Full Sail, then you graduated from Full Sail, stayed in Orlando.
Yeah.
So what happened next after that?
So yeah, after I graduated, I wasn't sure where I wanted to work, and I checked out going to other cities and stuff. I ultimately decided to stay in Orlando, and I started interning at a studio that we actually did labs out of, which was in Orlando, and it was a really nice studio. And I got an internship there, and it was cool because it was really a timing thing in a lot of respects, because right when I started interning there, they built out another studio, and one of the engineers that was working there was bringing in some pretty big clients that were that ended up leading into doing Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, who started coming through the studio. So I kind of got in at the right time. But, it was, funny enough, they were bringing in a lot of interns. And the reason is because they expected interns to work for free.
Right.
Which was just kind of a shitty thing within the music industry itself, is that they expect interns to work for free because they know they want to do the job and they can get the free labor out of it. So they were kind of turning around interns every 6 weeks, and it didn't, they were like, okay, new intern,
right,
just because they could get the free labor. And I think that's kind of gone away a little bit at this point, which I'm grateful for. But so luckily, I worked my ass off and showed that I really wanted to stay, and they kept me on, and I was able to get into an assistant position there where I was working in the studios during the sessions, and then as an engineer. So it worked out really well, and was able to work on some really big stuff that ended up coming through there in the mid-90s.
Because I know you worked with, because I was reading some of your stuff, you worked with NSYNC, you worked with Backstreet Boys.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because, these are big names.
Yeah. It was interesting. What's funny is when Backstreet Boys first came through on their first record, they were really young. And I was only 19, I think, at the time. But they came through, and I wasn't into pop music very much. I've never been into pop music, but so they came through, and it was a boy band, and I was just like, what is this? I was like, this is garbage. This is not going to do anything. And sure enough, it blew up. But so it was fascinating. But after the first record got through, which I think I really only assisted on at the time, and once the first record just blew, sorry about hitting the mic. Once the first record blew up, and they came back in and did a couple more records, it was I took it a little bit more seriously, and I got to work with some producers and songwriters that were just amazing people that you like. Max Martin, I don't know, you probably haven't heard of him, but he's written so many huge hits for so many big artists.
That's where most of a lot of the artists, they buy them from him, right? Or they get them from him?
Yeah. So he'll write the songs.
I've heard of him.
Yeah. He's from Sweden, and but like working with people like him and some of the other songwriters that were on those projects, and it was a pretty amazing experience. And luckily at the time, I realized just who some of these people really were, and was able to kind of soak in a little bit of what they.
Did you ever become starstruck?
No, when I first started working with with Backstreet and NSYNC, they were unknowns, so
Right.
It was like they were just real humble, down to earth kids, and they were all really nice kids, and a lot of talent and stuff. And I got to say, working with NSYNC was fun. I think I worked on 3 or 4 of their records, and just so much fun we had in the studio with those guys, and so talented. So it was fun to work on their stuff.
That's pretty cool. Now, and then I saw you also were nominated for a Grammy.
Yeah, so the Backstreet Boys Millennium album, which I think was '99, that was Album of the Year nomination, and it didn't win. It was I think Santana.
Okay.
So which I can understand. Santana,
That's probably more your music, right, Santana?
Yeah, Santana was great. I was bummed, of course, that I didn't win.
Right. But it had to be an awesome experience just to be nominated for something like that. That's not every day somebody gets nominated for a Grammy.
Yeah, no, it's a cool, conversation piece, I
right?
guess.
You guess.
But yeah, there was a couple other records that I worked on that had a Grammy nomination as well, like the Creed song that I worked on, and then there was a remix thing that I worked on that had a Grammy nomination. But so yeah, it was great experience for sure.
So you've done that for a while, and then so you were in Orlando, and so you worked with some of those guys. Now, kind of tell us a little bit about how you ended up where you're at now.
Yeah, so I think around 2002 or 3, things started really winding down a bit in Orlando with the pop music thing, and I was working at another studio. The manager of NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, I don't know if he was the manager, but he owned the label that they were on. His name was Lou Pearlman. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was in Orlando, and he was a really big, rich guy who ended up going to jail because of a Ponzi scheme thing. So yeah, it was crazy. And there was, sorry, allergies are making me cough or throat. Anyway, he ended up going to jail for this Ponzi scheme. His studio that I was working at the time was just gorgeous, beautiful, multi-million-dollar studio, and that ended up getting chewed up by the bank. But I was able to work on some other really cool projects during that time at that studio as well, like Sevendust and Alter Bridge, which were some rock groups. And that kind of led into some other things as well. So, but right around 2003 and 2004, things started slowing down. So I kind of took a little bit of a hiatus, and I just kind of focused on golf, funny enough. And then I was like, okay, after a couple of years, I was like, you know what, the technology, I mean, you grew up through the 90s too, so it's just like the technology from the mid-90s to the 2000s, there was a huge transformative shift with how everything was done, whether it was the internet or just digital itself. And so the music industry itself went through this dramatic shift where large studios weren't as, didn't need to be used as much. So a lot of them were starting to die off, and the cost overhead of having those is expensive. You get those big boards that cost $100,000 and the gear and stuff like that. So so everybody was starting to shift towards computers, home studio kind of thing. And I ended up buying, investing a small amount of money and started doing stuff out of my house. And I started doing some work out of my house and occasionally still did some freelance work at other studios around town. And I think in 2007, I ended up working with Boyce Avenue at the studio, and they were working on their first record. And that's kind of how I fell into working with those guys. And we worked on their first record, which was great. I really love the stuff on there, and just those guys are so talented. And when we finished that, they came to me about a year later or shortly after. They got signed onto a label, and it ended up not working out. But they came to me and they were like, hey, we're really pushing our YouTube channel and doing covers and things like that. And we want to work with you, but we can't afford to go work at like the studio we were at. What can we do? And I was like, well, I have a small setup at my house. I was like, why don't we try working there, and we'll see how it works out. So they really liked it, and at the time I was living by myself, so it wasn't a big deal. And so we started doing work out of there until 2002, and that's when I moved down here.
So kind of tell us a little bit, because I know, because they're from Sarasota, right? Boyce Avenue?
They are, yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, I think they're probably the biggest, I don't know how you want to say it, but biggest, maybe like, trying to put it into words.
The biggest band you've never
heard of, right? Yeah. So, I mean, around here. So, because, when you first told me about them, and then I started looking them up, and I saw how many people follow them on Spotify and how many people are on YouTube. And I was just blown away. I was just like, because you don't expect that here in Sarasota. Yeah. You expect that maybe in New York, Miami, maybe even Orlando, but not Sarasota. Yeah. And the thing is like, and when I started doing a little bit more, and then I didn't even realize, because then I started watching some of their videos, and I was like, and I found out you're the one that actually does all that. Yeah. And it's incredible. So kind of tell us a little bit about them and how they grew, because I mean, they have obviously grown quite well without being like a major band. I mean, to have that many followers is kind of crazy. Yeah. So they're brothers too, and I don't know if you knew that. I didn't know that. Yeah. So they're all three brothers. So it works out really well for them because they all have kind of like a talent within the band that, that they can do. So it's kind of like the workload is split up between the three of them. So I think having that advantage of the three brothers to be able to bounce off ideas and talk to and work as a team really has helped them to be able to have the success that they've had. But they started off doing, they ended up doing a cover song on YouTube that was, I think, from the Grammys or something. It was like a Rihanna song, and they were like, oh, we think Rihanna's going to do this song, and they ended up doing a cover of the song before the Grammys came out, and then sure enough, she did that song, and this was before YouTube was really, really big, and so anyway, their channel kind of started getting a lot of momentum after she did that song. People would go on the internet, search for it or whatever, and they found their cover of it. And this was before I worked with them, but
they it just slowly started snowballing into that, and they started to get a little bit of money where they wanted to do their, their whole thing was they wanted to do originals. It wasn't a cover thing.
Right.
So that's when they did their first record, and they tried to push that, and they ended up getting on Universal Republic on their label, but the label didn't really push them very much, or didn't, for whatever reason, kind of shelf them. So they ended up buying their album back from Universal Republic, and they were like, well, we're just going to do our own thing. And that's when they started pushing the covers and started working on that stuff. And for whatever reason, I mean, a lot of it is timing, a lot of it's talent. I mean, the singer Alejandro Manzano, he is an amazingly talented person and a fantastic singer, and people love his voice. So he, people just kept wanting to hear him sing and do these songs and do these acoustic covers that they are known for. I think so many people hear their music and don't realize even who they are, because a lot of times it gets put on a playlist, whether it's Pandora, Spotify, or whatever, and people are like, oh yeah, I have heard of those guys, because it gets on the playlist.
Well, that's the thing is, I listen to him, and he's like, sometimes he just sounds just like the artist, and I love the acoustic sound to it. I think that's one of the things that's pretty cool about it.
Yeah.
And so like it gives you a different vibe of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the cool thing. And then
they were kind of like the first to really do that too. They were the first to kind of start that trend of doing those acoustic covers, and a lot of other people, the people who followed behind them, like within the next couple of years, really had some success as well. And we did some collaborations with several of those YouTube artists as well. But it was, they did kind of, I think, start that trend,
So now, when they do a cover song, they've got to do anything like pay royalties to those guys?
Yeah, we get licensing for that and pay royalties for that. So there's a standard rate for that stuff.
Okay, yeah, because I was wondering, I was like, do you have to, like you said, if you sing a song, then they got to get there? Because I'm sure the artist is like, well, you're using my song,
No, for sure. Yeah.
So.
No, everybody who does like a cover usually has to pay. Yeah, there's a royalty rate for that.
Wow. So that's pretty interesting. So talk us through what a normal day is for you, because I know you work, you work every day. I mean, it's a full-time job for you.
Yeah.
So what does that kind of look like for you as far as when you go into work, and just give us like kind of an example? What does that kind of go through?
It really, it's depending on where we're at in the schedule from any given week, but it's usually I'll come in, I'll either do some editing or some mixing, or if we have a video coming out that weekend, I'll either be editing the video. Those usually, we do 2 videos a month, so they'll be usually twice a month where we'll actually film. So we do have an assistant that does a lot of our setup for us. So if it's a film day, I'll come in, I'll help finish up some of the setup for our filming, kind of get that stuff ready. And if it's a film day, we'll just film. Usually film day will take 2 days, and we'll do 2 days of filming, and then there'll be like a full day or 2 of editing and stuff. But it's usually one of those things, and there'll be days where maybe I have to do just some email work and stuff. Usually in the morning I'll take care of more administrative stuff, and then some emails or computer stuff, anything that I have to deal with, and try to get some work done. And then usually a few hours later, like Alejandro will come in and we'll work together and start recording and do things like that.
So, and then as far as, because I know you guys have because I've seen them have other people in there that you guys have brought in.
Yeah.
And so I know, like, just recently, I can't recall her name.
Connie Talbot.
Yeah. So, she's a pretty well-known artist as well, right?
She's a pretty big YouTube artist, and she's out of the UK.
UK. So you guys had her come in, and then do you guys do that a lot? Do you collaborate a lot with other artists?
We try to. Those are usually pretty successful songs and videos, depending on who we have. But Connie Talbot's stuff did pretty well. And we did some stuff with her a couple of years ago as well. So it was great to have her back. She's super talented. You heard the stuff.
Yeah.
She's a great singer.
She's great.
But we're really trying to push, like this year, I think we want to do more collabs. So we're trying to get more other artists, whether it's YouTube or stuff. And I think, we did, like a few years back, we did a collaboration with Sarah Hyland from Modern Family. I don't know if you watched that show or not, but
I've seen it.
She was one of the daughters on the show, and we ended up doing a collaboration with her for a couple songs, and we went to LA and did that with her, and she was amazing. I was completely surprised at how good she was, but she was a great singer. but yeah, so sometimes it's pretty random, but yeah, we're definitely pushing to do more of that stuff.
And where do you guys see yourself? I mean, do you guys do a lot of traveling? Do you guys go out and do they do tours? Or?
Yeah. So they have a tour in Brazil in June. I'm not going to be going to that. I will sometimes do some of the more local stuff if it's in the States. I've done a couple of tours. Live sound really isn't like my forte. I've never done it before, but a couple of years ago, I kind of just ended up doing it. And it was fun, but I lack a lot of experience when it comes to that stuff. So it's a little stressful for me, but so we're going to be doing a wedding in Mexico City in May. I'm going to go to that. So we do some one-off stuff like that. They went to Dubai last year in December for a festival. So we definitely do some touring. Obviously with COVID the last couple of years, we haven't been going out, but we're trying to do some more stuff and trying to push some more stateside stuff hopefully next year. But yeah, that's
pretty cool.
Yeah.
So for people that are listening and really kind of wanting to learn, because doing what you do, or like let's say that's their passion and really want to get into editing, producing, I mean, because I've seen your videos. I mean, the videos that you see on YouTube are pretty impressive. I mean, they're like watching, I mean, it's like, I mean, I know MTV doesn't really do music videos anymore, but it's like that kind of video. I mean, it's very professionally done. It looks fantastic.
Thanks.
You know, so what advice would you give somebody that is looking to get into this business, you know, as far as what should they do, you know, maybe talk about like some of the struggles it took or like that kind of thing?
Yeah, I was kind of talking a little bit to Bryce about this too earlier. It was, you know, I think, you know, Bryce was talking about school and stuff like that. And I think that getting a little bit of a foundation education is not a bad thing. And I don't necessarily think you need to go to like Full Sail to do that. I always encourage people to check out like universities and things like that, because with a degree from like a technical school like Full Sail or something like that, it's very limited. It's also very expensive, but it's, you know, if things don't work out or just to get a broader education, sometimes a university will offer a lot of the same courses, maybe not quite as refined, but at least you've got a better degree coming out. But I don't necessarily think you need to even worry so much about being like that proficient in the software or the industry itself. Like when when I'm hiring assistants and stuff like that, a lot of times it's just like I want the confidence of a work ethic and you know, the attitude and just kind of like the corporate culture that, you know, that is going to be somebody I can hang around with for, you know, 8 to 10 hours a day. I think that's way more important. I can teach somebody how to set up a microphone and do things, you know, so that's if you're looking to get into, you know, nowadays with YouTube and the technology, it's so easy to just get out of school and start doing your own thing. But I think there is something to be said to like learning under, you know, somebody more experienced and getting to work on other projects that you don't really get like just watching YouTube videos and things like that as well. But you know, I think the biggest thing for a lot of people coming out is if you're looking to, you know, if you're talking to other people and even when you're just trying to hustle up some work as a freelance, I think the biggest thing is just the confidence of work ethic. And, you know, you don't need to come off as cocky or the confidence of the best that there is kind of vibe, but, you know, more of just like, you know, the personable, you know, and the work ethic kind of thing is what I think people need to push for. The confidence, but not the cocky, you know?
Right.
Which probably transcends to all industries anyway, but.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I think a lot of people need to realize is that, you know, it's always good to learn from people that have been there and done that, right? I mean, even with me and my podcast, I'm always like watching other podcasts or learning more and more about them, or even in my mortgage industry, learning from the top people, because like, okay, well, what did they do that I can implement into my own business?
Yeah.
You know, or how can I add this or stop this or whatever, right? So it's just one of those things that I just think that it always is going to help you, make you get better,
yeah, for
you
sure.
know? And so like, even if it's sometimes, like, even if it was somebody that's coming to you and be like, hey, even if you worked with them for a few hours and didn't even pay them, it's just the experience of it, because you get to see how they run that business or whatever, and just to learn and your knowledge and grow it.
Yeah.
Because like somebody's always going to be out there that is doing it better than you did.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are. I mean, somebody's always going to be. I mean, it's like, okay, well, maybe even like in the money business, you got Grant Cardone, but then you got Warren Buffett, So it's like, so there's, multiple people out there that's always going to be probably better. But if you can learn from them, you can make yourself better.
Yeah, and they learn from somebody too.
Right.
It's not like they just picked it up.
You got to be, and I think that's the hardest part is for some people is they don't want to learn, or they think they know it all.
Yeah.
And so like, it's like, okay, you can't have that mentality. You got to be coachable and want to learn, because if not, then this industry will just eat you up.
Yeah.
And it's like, because you just, if it's something's not working, but you think it's your own way and you won't listen to it, then you're going to be out of a job. And, and then next thing you know, it's like, okay, well, what happened?
Yeah.
And so I think that's sometimes that we forget about that. So when you,
and just to elaborate on that, the music and the film industry, the entertainment industry is unforgiving. And it's savage. And it's, and I was telling Bryce this, like, you've got a far more supply of people wanting to do the job than there is for the demand of getting, So it's like you kind of have to stand out in ways of, the attitude, you can't, you got to have some humility when it comes to the things, but you got to have the work ethic, and you've got to be prepared to work shitty hours a lot of times too, where it can be really, especially when you're starting out, if you're working on a bigger project, the hours are going to be brutal, but it's, yeah.
So when I actually went to broadcasting school, believe it or not.
Oh yeah, you told me that. Yeah.
And so actually so when I got out, when I first got married, I was like, I really wanted to get into broadcasting, and I've always had a passion for this type of genre, just being something like this. And so, I went to broadcasting school, and it was a small little school. And actually I got a job. I worked for a company called WBAL in Baltimore. Started as an intern, made no money.
Yeah.
And actually I got to go, and I wanted to get into sports. I really like sports. So like I was an intern for the sports department there. And I'd go and be able to go down to interview like the players for the Ravens and the Baltimore Ravens and that kind of thing. So then as I got more and more into it, then they finally offered me a position as a producer and an overnight weekend producer.
Oh, nice.
And so, but it didn't pay anything.
Oh.
And then
sounds about right.
And so, like, I mean, it was minimum wage, 2 nights a week, and it was just like, and the problem was just that I had a family. I started a family, and I just couldn't afford it. Like, it just didn't pay any. So I had to get. I mean, I was like, look, I got to get a job. I mean, and so I had to give it up. But it did give me some experience on some of the stuff that I do now, and getting me through that and understanding how to make that. But it's tough. It was tough because, like, I really wanted to follow that, and you never know when it might come back. So now here I am, and who would have thought that back then? Because I mean, podcasts, is just another way, to get out there. And yeah, I mean, like, for this, it's like, okay, I don't make any money doing this,
right,
but I enjoy it, and it became my passion. And so, like, now I get to talk to people like you, and talk to other people, and just like hear their stories on how they got there, and it's just like, but you just kind of got to give it your time, and it takes time, and and so, but it's also a work ethic, right? So I mean, it's like, I put a lot of time into this. I put a lot of time in trying to build it, because it's not, especially starting out, it's like, okay, now I need listeners.
Yeah.
I need to get the word out, and that's the hard part, right? That I am in right now is that it's just trying to build my audience, because and try to get it out there, because there's I don't know, I think there's like 2,500 or maybe more podcasts out there. So
saturated. Yeah.
So there's a lot out there. So you got to figure out how you can become better, and then a little bit of a niche or a type of thing. So that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah,
to talk about when you were talking about as a producer and having a family, that was something I was going to say earlier too. Is for younger kids who are just out of school and stuff like that, they don't have financial ties and families and things like that. So it's a lot easier sometimes to be able to do those cheap internships and, work for free or work for very little money and try to advance into the business. It's if you've got, a lot of people, if you've got a family or, you've got obligations, that's going to, it's going to be a lot tougher. And that's one of the bad things about the industry.
Oh, the entertainment business itself is like, I've had other people in here. I've had some like movie producers. I've had actors, and a lot of times because they're trying to get into the business or trying to grow their business, like the producers will be like, "Hey, I want you to be in my movie. However, I have a very low budget and almost paying you nothing or nothing at all to be in the movie."
Yeah.
So like, and if you're a beginning actor or something like that, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to get paid. So you got to figure it out on how, it works, because like, a lot of these movies like that are, people out there, especially these small independent movies, it's like, okay, there's no budget. Like there's very little budget.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's tough to get it. And the entertainment business is very tough. Like, everything even for this, I pay for it out of my own pocket. There's no return. Yeah. I don't have any advertisers or anything like that. But, it's just, you figure out a way to make it work. And, and if you want to do it, then you'll go after it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, and I really, and the same thing with like, even with Bryce, because Bryce does some of the same stuff that you do, and growing his business. And I'm happy to see like he's working with some other people to help grow him, because like, it's just one of those things. I think the more you do it, the better you'll get at it.
Yeah.
And it can become, and maybe I'm wrong, but I know like it can become very, very lucrative to you at some point.
A matter of perspective. It depends. Yes, like if you're in the situation like you're in, if it were to grow up enough, you're able to make more money and stuff. I think for people like me who are working for somebody else, you're sort of limited to what you can get, for money wise. Because at the same time, even as a freelance engineer, it's like, well, I'm charging such and such an hour. Or such and such a project, and there's only a finite amount that you're really going to be able to bring in, unless you're getting royalties and things like that. And that's when, then it can get lucrative, and that's
right. What
you want to kind of aim for in this business, is being able to get that passive income, like with anything. But yeah,
because that's kind of how you guys make your money, right? It's passive income through YouTube and Spotify and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the key kicker there is,
yeah.
Obviously, if Spotify could pay Joe Rogan $100 million, there's money to be made there.
Yeah.
And so the passive income, but I think that's just like, I think it takes time, and it's
definitely
difficult.
it takes a lot of time,
and it's difficult to grow. And,
it is. That's it's the thing. It's like you just got to be able to get out there. You just got to keep doing it. It's not one of those things that really happens overnight, but.
Unless you're one of the chosen ones, but but
there's
most
outliers,
people,
but
yeah. But then the thing is, I was just talking about this on the last podcast with my last group, is like, very rarely do people just all of a sudden just shoot up. A lot of people, they've struggled and they've gone through things, and they just like, okay, well, this happened or that happened, and then you have to readjust, and it just doesn't happen overnight. And if it does happen overnight, a lot of times what will happen is, okay, you're an overnight sensation, but then you're gone the next day.
Yeah.
And it's because you didn't go through the struggles, you didn't go through the process to build what you needed to build.
Yeah.
And then if you just went straight to the top, and then okay, well, yeah, you're a one-hit wonder, and now nobody knows who you are anymore.
And that's with Boyce Avenue. It's like, that's what we've talked about this ad nauseum, about how their slow ascent to where they are now really has helped them with the sustainability of their business model. I think if they would have just taken off immediately off of just like one thing or something like that, it may not have been as sustainable, just based off of how other things have been like that. So I think that slow growth for them is really helped for them, not only now, but the future sustainability of their model as well. So
how much do you know about like the band and that kind of thing? Like, do you know how they came up with their name or anything like that?
I believe the Boyce Avenue thing was a street that they lived on when they were younger.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's
kind of crazy, because I was wondering, I was like, how did they come up with that name? Where did that come from?
Yeah, a lot of people don't pronounce it correctly, and it's an odd name, and a lot of times people are like, what? And I remember when I first heard it, I was like, what? Because it doesn't look, it's but it works.
And then all three of them are brothers.
Yeah.
And so you got your singer, and then that is.
So that's Alejandro.
That's Alejandro. And then what about the other two?
So the other two, Fabian, who's the guitar player, and then Danielle, who does like the cajon and the percussion and plays bass. So, but yeah, and they, they all have their talent, because even like, Alejandro does a lot of the playing and the singing, obviously. And Fabian went to graphic design school, so he handles a lot of our artwork and does a lot of the stuff like that. And Danielle went to Harvard Law School.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so
okay.
he's really well versed with the law side of things and things. So he does a lot of business side stuff. So everybody's kind of got their little
talents.
niche in there. Yeah.
So were they always just talented? Did they come from a music family, or?
I think their grandfather or something was a fairly talented artist, but I don't know. They just
It's kind of odd that you get three brothers that are all that talented.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's like they all do really well at it.
Yeah,
because it's like usually you have one, maybe two, but three.
Yeah, and I've told. Like Alejandro, who's the singer, he's amazing. He's an amazing producer and just an amazing songwriter. But I tell people one of the reasons why I came down here to work with them was because of the talent. And I've said to people before, I've worked with some people like Justin Timberlake and all these other artists who I consider extremely talented, and I would put Alejandro right up there with those guys.
Yeah, his voice is just incredible. I mean, it's. I mean, I listened to him. I mean, like I said, it sounds just like him. And I can't remember the song. It was the he did with the one lady you were just telling me about. What was her name?
Connie Talbot.
Yeah. So they did one with the Kenny. Was it Kenny Rogers? I think it was. Who was it? What was that song?
Endless Love.
Yeah, Endless Love.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, and I was just blown away how well that was sang, and how well it sounded.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I mean, and so it was like, it's just incredible. And then I watched the video, and then that's why I was like I watched the video and how great the video was, because even the video was very entertaining.
Oh, good.
And so, so I mean, so your work is very impressive, and it was just like, all right. So, all right. So, anything else you want to add? Anything else you got to put out there for young people that want to get in this business?
I kind of went over some of it. Yeah. I mean, I for the young people, it's just going to be, show the confidence in the work ethic, and that don't come off cocky, and have humility, I think, is the biggest thing, because I think you come off as sounding like it's bullshit, and you act like it's comes off wrong, and a lot of people hate that, and they see through it. So. But yeah, you want to talk about anything else?
Tell us a little bit about the Ukrainian president, how that's helped you, because I find that story kind of interesting.
Yeah, so we didn't really even find out about it until it was really had started trending. But yeah, it blows my mind. That song "Endless Love" we were talking about with Connie Talbot was the one that really set it off. But people started spreading on media that this was President Zelensky of the Ukraine singing "Endless Love" with his wife. With his wife,
right.
And it's sort of absurd, but and if you can look at Alejandro and President Zelensky, and you can see that there are similarities with the way they look, and even Connie Talbot looks a little bit like his wife with the straight blonde hair. So I can see how it would gain traction and people would start running with it, but the absurdity of President Zelensky doing a cover song with his wife, "Endless Love," in perfect English, playing guitar of all things, it's like it's funny because it shows how easy misinformation can spread, and people will just believe it because they want to. But
it went crazy. It went viral.
It did,
and because everybody was sitting there sharing it. And I remember one of the things I thought was kind of
you even sent me a picture of
right. Well, I sent you a thing because the thing was I was on Facebook and somebody had shared it saying, check out this, check them out and look at the, they're singing this song, and I'm like. And I sent it to you, and I was like, see, it's still out there. Yeah. And then I actually put in the comments, I was like, actually, this is not them. This is Boyce Avenue, who is right here in Sarasota. They're like, they're here? I was like, yeah, they're here. And they couldn't believe that they were actually local. And
I joked around that we should hire security in case Vladimir Putin comes around looking for Zelensky.
So I just thought that was kind of interesting after you told me that story and how fast it just grew, and then like how fast we started seeing it all over Facebook.
Yeah, I don't understand it because we have like our names all over it. You know, we have logos on there, and everybody still was like, "Oh my God, it's President Zelensky." I'm like,
No,
but I think it's died down a little bit at this point. But yeah, I mean, we saw a viewership bump and stuff like that, and I think like this is sort of harmless misinformation, but it probably helped the image of President Zelensky, and you know, gave us
a little bit more down there.
Hopefully gave us a little bit more recognition from some people who didn't realize who we were, but you know, we did see a small viewership bump in that, but I think a lot of that was shared where it was something where, you know, the way it was being shared and a lot of times wasn't how we were able to monetize it very well and things like that. So, you know, it was one of those things that just kind of goes off and it's like, this is bizarre, but
right.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, I appreciate you being here.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.